Good morning. This is the Blainsville webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you get more information and listen to previous shows at our website, which is behind me, blainsworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce a local artist, Katrina Chenevert. Am I getting it close?
You did. Yeah.
Chenevert, for being my guest today. And Katrina, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So that is Katrina. I have to just jump in here. First of all, I'll give you a background, and then we'll talk about how we met initially.
Okay.
But Katrina Chenevert is a mixed media artist working and living here in Asheville. As a Navy veteran, she used her VA education benefits and went back to school, completing a third degree, a BA in art with an emphasis in sculpture from the University of North Carolina, Asheville. She is known for her work in 2D and 3D mixed media assemblage, and also for different sculptures and paintings. Opening her own gallery in 2020, Katrina curated the work of emerging pop artists, giving them a fresh platform to show and discover their art. Her work has been shown in New York City, galleries in North Carolina, in private collections throughout the United States. You were just telling me off the air, you were just, your work was in Ohio recently? Was that
Yeah, my work was at the Dayton Art Institute.
Okay, that was cool.
That exhibition just came down yesterday.
Okay, how'd they find you, by the way?
Geez, they found me. I certainly didn't find them. I was a resident artist, and this is typical. When I was a resident artist down at 310 Art, which is in the Red, River Arts District, at Riverview Station, I was there for 5 years. And it's typical, I swear, when I wasn't there doing my twice a week duty to attend the gallery, people would come in and buy my stuff. So these women that came in on a day saw my Ruth Bader Ginsburg assemblage and fell in love with it, wanted to purchase it. And one of the couple sent me an email, and we made she bought it then, and I sent it to her. It has a kind of an interesting story, though, because it's an assemblage that has a profile, and it was built off of a 20 by 30 canvas, and it had hands that I had molded. It had authentic things like a gavel, the jabot, and those kinds of things. And when I sent it to them, they live in Cincinnati, Ohio, someone cut off the hand so they could better package it in a box. And when the collector got it, she gave me a call and she says, I have a question. She said, did you cut the hands off this? And I said, no, I did not. And so, well, somebody did, and that was a whole investigation thing. And there was a new employee that was working at UPS and thought, oh, I'll pack it really tight. Let me just cut these and rearrange stuff. And
So
anyway, so that's kind of what happened to that piece.
What did you do though? What happened to that? What did you do with it?
Well, after going through UPS and going down to that UPS, they caught it on film where,
Right.
everybody was working and it was on camera, and they saw that the employee actually had done that. So they offered to send me to Ohio to fix the piece. In the meantime, the people that bought it had a friend who was an artist and actually fixed it. It wasn't a lot to fix it. It was just reattaching the hands.
No, it's just some story. By the way, unfortunately, I guess, do you have a picture of that, or can we see it, or do you have it anywhere?
I'll pull it up while we're
Or I can pause in a
no.
second. But anyway, I would have loved to have
Yeah.
seen the picture. So that was some story, but fortunately it had a good ending. So
It had a good
about
ending, and it ended up like in their collection. They took some pieces from their collection, their home collection, private collection, and it was at the Dayton Art Institute. It ran for 3 months, so it ran for June until it just came down yesterday.
Did you get out to see it at all?
I didn't get up to see it.
Oh,
I did not.
okay.
No, matter of fact, I never met these women.
Okay,
We're friends on like Facebook, and she's one of them is quite involved in the art arena, and she's members on different kinds of boards for different museums and what have you.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned you haven't met these women.
No,
I love the story how we met, and if you can share that
I
with
know.
people, because you and I, before we started taping tonight, we're talking about how we met, and I couldn't figure it out. And Katrina, I'll let you do the honors, talk about the story of how we met.
Yeah, so quite a few years ago now, there was a fundraiser for breast cancer. And the thing was, gosh, a lot of people in our neighborhood at Biltmore Lake purchased a plain bra, a canvas, if you will, and they all painted it and made them into something because they were going up for an auction for sale. And mine was Peppermint Patty. So it was pink and white painted bra that had it was just pink and white, and it looked like the peppermint candies. And a lot of the men that came over, this was at Joyce and Bill's that
Right.
came, we did a calendar and we all lined up on their stairway, and some of the men donned the bras. And
Well,
it was really, it made for a cute calendar, which also sold.
but I think it was all the guys who wore the bras, right? That was the
Yeah, all
fun
the
part of
men
it.
wore the
And
bras.
it
Yeah.
was so much fun. But I remember I think I said, who did this bra? And I guess that's how we met or something. I said, that was really cool. But
Yeah.
that was your bra phase. So you haven't done other bras like that?
We've done no bras. We've done
Okay.
no bras.
But who
No.
would have thunk? So Katrina, talk a little bit about your background. So I know I mentioned before that you were a Navy veteran.
A Navy veteran.
When
Yeah.
you were a child, where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Exeter, New Hampshire.
Okay. And when you were growing up in New Hampshire, did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
I did. I was always drawing, coloring. I'd take a cereal box and copy Captain Crunch or whoever was on it. And I was always doing that. I remember my father worked at Phillips Exeter Academy. He was in the lab department. He was a lab assistant and in the science department. And I remember going to the Academy bookstore, or I would visit him. The building next door to the science building was the art department. And imagine this little kid, probably 9 years old, me. I would, I could enter the building and I'd look around and I'd see these sculptures and artists. And I just thought, this is so cool. And that was kind of like, my background, walking around this school, seeing people do art. And it was really cool to be able to do that. But I go into the bookstore, got two great big sketch, and I would paint with watercolor or whatever I could get my hands on. And I would paint, and I still have those. I still have those from like when I was 8 or 9, painting on my front porch, the neighbor's house, or whatever.
Well, you were lucky then. It sounds like your parents were encouraging you to do the art.
They definitely encouraged me, bought me my first art easel, I think when I was 9, and an oil set that I finally got rid of the oils because they were all dried out. The ones I did use, I kind of emptied it out. And yeah, I was very fortunate in high school. I was for senior superlatives. I was nominated for most artistic and got that. And then I joined the Navy at 19 years old, and I had a 28-year hiatus where I didn't do any art at all. It was all Navy. It was all medical background,
Well,
and
your
yeah,
experience just reminds me a little of mine, which is sort of just the opposite, Katrina, because as a child like you, I love to draw and paint. I remember at one time, I think in first grade, we had like 5 refrigerators in our house for all the art. And then I remember vividly in second grade, I get to work with an art teacher for the first time, right? And I do this
yeah.
masterpiece, and the art teacher laughed. I never picked up anything after that. That
Ah,
but isn't that true though? If you don't encourage an artist or potential artist, you can really hurt the kid or whatever.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, yeah. More so as an adult, I think,
probably
because I think you have more courage as a kid.
you were lucky though. So after that's some story. So when you were in the Navy, you never even picked up a paintbrush or never did
I
anything?
drew a couple. I remember I was stationed in Bermuda. It was 1988, 89, and I had a sketch pad, and I was bodybuilding at the time, and I drew bodybuilding figures, I think, and that was really pretty much that was it. I don't think, and as a matter of fact, when I retired from the military in 2007, and we moved and retired here to Asheville, North Carolina, out of Northern Virginia. Um, and I did this watercolor that was accepted in the American Watercolor Society up in New York. And the title of that piece was Smoking Hot Women. And it was based on a photograph of my grandmother from the 30s. I painted that. The original watercolor painting was only about 17 by 14 inches. It's since sold to another collector up in Chicago, but that went up to New York. What was I saying about that? I just derailed myself.
No, but how she was a smoking hot woman, and then you were doing your grandmother.
Yeah, and I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that painting because I had it blown up to 72 inches by 42 inches. And I did two things with that. Dot Editions is a wonderful business here in Asheville. And he works with artists to not just reproduce their things, but help them reproducing their things. And what I mean by that, when I had this particular painting, giclée to canvas, that a roll of canvas, and same size, 72 by 42 on regular paper, thick stock paper. The first one, I needle felted. So all the women in this and everything got felted coats, felted hats, because they all had those in the 30s when this picture was taken. And they were all imitating. Some of them were posing, some of them were not, but they were smoking.
Oh,
And somebody had mentioned when they saw the picture, smoking hot women. So I don't always come up with the titles for my paintings. That a friend did actually on this one. And so the first one sold to a couple in Asheville, and they redid their living room to have this big, it's like a tapestry almost, because it was needle felted, put in their home. And the second one, I collaged, and that's my first collage. Still working on it. It's here in the studio. And because I have a pop art flair, I work in that genre a lot. It got a faux fur white frame.
well, talk about something you just mentioned. And when you do a piece of art, painting or any sculpture, whatever, where does the title come in? Does that come in at the end, beginning? How do you come up with the title?
It's like, how do I come up with that? People's like, well, how did you think of that? Honestly, these things, I joke, I say it pops in my head, and it does. But it does. Just I'll think of something like, oh, that color looked good with that. And I'm very detailed oriented. And when I look at stuff, people think I'm drifting off. I'm not paying attention. I'm just, there's a lot of tabs open all the time. It's exhausting sometimes.
Do you ever have a title before painting or piece of art?
No, but what I do sometimes, usually the title comes afterwards. Yeah, mostly always. But like sometimes when I'm entering into an exhibition or there's a call for art, there's a theme. And some of my things happen to fall neatly into a theme. Like there's a one coming up for collage, and I'm like, well, hey, I just did one of those. Let me see how this will fit into that.
And in terms of your work, I'm very impressed with the fact that you certainly aren't buttonholed, I think, into one thing. And let's talk about that a little bit, because you came to Asheville and then you started studying art formally. Was that what happened? You went for art school? And I think we're frozen. Just a second. I'm going to pause. Hi again. This is Blaine Greenfield at the Blaine's World webcast. And we're speaking with Katrina Chenevert. And we just got stuck a little bit on some technical difficulties, but we're back again. Good to see you again. And we were talking, Katrina, about the fact that you certainly, in your art career, didn't just go into one area. I'm very impressed with that. That you completed your Navy service, came to Asheville. Is that when you started studying art on a formal basis?
When I came to Asheville, I was here. Oh, my son just turned 3. So there's that. I didn't have a whole lot of time for art, wasn't even thinking about it. But I think it was when the River Arts District did a stroll. They used to do them twice a year.
Right.
They do them in the spring and the fall. And I went down there, and one of the first places I went into was Riverview Station, where 310 Art still is. and they teach adults art classes. They're probably the one or few of Western North Carolina that teaches adult art classes. It's not, you don't get credit for it, but it's a place where you can go and learn all different kinds of art things. And I took a couple classes there. I don't even remember what the first one was, but I do remember specifically taking a watercolor class from an instructor there called Laurel Bacon. She's also a local artist. And I really liked the watercolor. And then, but I just couldn't stop working with anything I can get my hands on. What's pastel like? What's oil like? What's acrylic like? Not that I hadn't touched these things before, but there was no, I didn't know how to use them. It was all experimental. The formal part of it came when I did go to UNCA, and I started printmaking, and I didn't use any of those materials. I just loved sending something through the print and then finally having that print. It was really cool. I liked it until I got to the second year. We're doing stone lithography. Too messy, too many chemicals for an end result. So I went into painting, and I did that for 3 years. And on the third year painting, we had an assignment, and the assignment was to do a 3D painting, which meant come off the canvas somehow. And my instructor at the time gave us a list of probably 25 people. And every one of those people that he gave us their names, I Googled. And when I got to, and this is a revelation for me, when I got to Marisol Escobar, maybe only female that was on the list, I opened up her website of Marisol Escobar and I went, that's it. This is it. I love that. I love that. I love that. And she was hung out with Andy Warhol, friends with Andy Warhol. She was pretty famous in the 1960s, 70s in the pop art community. And she was just obscured. I mean, she just went into obscurity and is coming way back out. And she's my muse, because I could go on for hours talking about Marisol Escobar, and almost came to meet her, almost, not quite, when I went up to New York to visit my own painting in the show that was 149th Watercolor Society show up in New York. And she lived in Tribeca, which is probably 10 minutes from where I was. And but she was ill. She had Alzheimer's, and she was actually on her way out, unfortunately. But it didn't stop me from going to where her apartment was, looking up and gazing at the second floor, hoping I could get some glimpse of something. And but that wasn't possible. And I came home, and probably 3 weeks after that, she passed away.
That was a cool story.
Yeah.
Had you met her?
Yeah.
Almost. But anyway, so finished. So I got you off. You were studying into your third year or whatever your study in studying art at UNCA, right?
Right.
And in the art department. And you graduated. You eventually had a degree in what was it?
I have 2 degrees that actually Navy sent me for one. I have a baccalaureate in healthcare management and a master's in adult education.
And so the studying you were for art were just for yourself for the most part. Is
Oh
that
yeah,
correct?
it's the only degree I use.
Okay. Well, so then talk about the fact, so you went through the program, you've been doing artwork. What happened then to the part where you started doing it professionally and getting paid for your art?
I being a resident artist, Fleta Monahan owns 310 Art, and taking a few classes there, and then I started at UNCA. I would bring her some of my projects and say, look what I did, look what, and we talked a lot about art, and she was very helpful. And she gave me the opportunity to be a resident, take up a space in her studio/gallery and exhibit my work. And that's what started the sales of my work. And in UNCA, entered shows. I got a scholarship to go to Penland to work in glass. That's something that I continually do, is take classes either at Penland or Aramont in things that I didn't get a chance to work on or put my hands on or create with when I was at UNCA. So we're talking glass, fabric, concrete, things that I just didn't get a chance to do. And I learned. It's my continuing education, and that's
Yeah.
how I do it.
Do you have
Yeah.
a favorite thing to work in?
I don't. I do. Well, I take that back. When I started doing soft sculptures, and when I say soft sculptures, these are not little pieces; these are big and made out of felt, made out of roving, and they're needle felted, and they're very time consuming. But towards the end of my time at UNCA, I did like a 3 foot Pop Tart. For an example, I did like a 3 foot moon pie, and they all have the wrappers that go around them, and they're very pop artish. And then I really enjoyed working with that material soft. I was able to weed out things I did not like to work in. I am not crazy about metal. I don't like working in metal. That's one thing I did cross off the list. But everything else is like a go. And when I take these classes, either at Aramont or at Penland, I use something from those classes and incorporate it in my assemblages, or I just incorporate it, period.
Let me ask you, in terms of art, is this something also that you can, if not take classes, learn on YouTube, or do people study art on YouTube?
That's funny. You should say that. Absolutely.
Really?
So when I was in my first year in sculpture, the assignment was given to make something out of textiles. So we could have used fabric, some kind of plastic textile, anything we wanted to use, but we had to make something. And we came back a week later, and one of the women that was in my class had created this little, it wasn't big, it was probably this, it was small, it wasn't very big, and it was an earth, and she had made it out of needle felting, and it was so intricate, and it had these little mushrooms coming out of it. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, how'd you learn how to do that? She goes, I Googled. I was like, well, if you can Google it, I can Google it. And basically, and I Googled a lot of things. Mostly what I've gotten out of that is how to find materials and use the materials. It's been beneficial. Uh, what was great, and my things just kind of spiraled and went in different directions. When I opened my gallery, the same name, Katrina Chenevert Gallery, it was down in Biltmore Village. I had it for 2 years, and it was next to Fig Restaurant.
Right.
And terrible foot traffic. And I also opened it in 2020. So there's that.
Right.
It was a daring move. I had some great shows in there. I had a renowned needle felter come in, Stephanie Metz, and she was wonderful and did a show there for me. Also, a Cuban artist named Felix Semper, who is one of two artists that create these flexible art, 3D art. He'll have a bust of, let's just say it's Superman, because that's what he brought to the gallery when we had the show. And he pneumatically set this bust of Superman down in a gutted television set that probably was from 1950s. And the pneumatic thing would raise this bust out. And so he had Superman sitting on top of a TV, and he'd go over to it, take the head, and it would extend boing, oing, 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 for feet. So he does that kind of art, and he was a lot of fun to have in the gallery.
And fast forward that, and if you can, Katrina, the fact that you had the gallery, I know exactly where it was, and
Yeah.
then you were there for 2 years.
Yep.
You now have a gallery is at your home, is that correct?
I took my things and two of the exhibiting artists that I had in my gallery, and I closed the gallery, and I went to Marquee. At the time, the new shiny coin in town, 55,000 square feet, which had, it's kind of like a bazaar. It
Right.
has antiques, it has fine art, has a bar. And it was a venue that I could use to continue with the gallery, but not really in the gallery presence that I was used to when I owned the gallery.
So is that where you are now, or?
I just moved my stuff out, so I'm nowhere.
Okay, well, except
I'm at home.
well, we're going to talk about that. So you're at home now,
Yeah.
and it's kind of interesting. I'm going to put you on the spot here, show you some of the stuff you've done. So now you do your art. Let me just ask you this question, if I can, Katrina. in terms of art, is this something you do every single day of your life? Do you get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and work till 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Do you have a
I don't. I have certain things that inspire me, but I will say every single day I do something art-ish, art-wise. I'll be on my phone and I'll look at somebody else creating something. I'll read a story. I'm continually every day reading books on art, art stories, art ventures. So I continually educate myself, take these classes at Penland and Aramont. So I stay abreast, but to come in here and say I work from 7 to 7, no, I'm working on a project. And if I turn my radio on and I shut my door, that kind of means for the rest of the household, don't come in. Just let me do my thing. I'll come out when I'm hungry. And, sometimes it lasts 3 hours, sometimes it lasts the whole day, depending on what I'm working on.
Well, if we
Yeah.
can't put you on the spot, since we're in your studio, I guess, or where you do your art here,
Yeah.
can you just give us like a brief tour and just talk about some of the things you're working on or have done, if you can?
Absolutely. Just in the background here, you really can't tell what this is too much, but I took a class
Right.
at Aramont, and the individual was making these inflatables, is what the class was called. And we use this nylon material, we'd sew and create these inflatable things. I made a great big beach ball and something else, but we had materials, and I am the proud owner, mama of a miniature bull terrier. And so that was going to be a bull terrier in a bull harness kind of thing. I have lots of projects I've started and haven't completed,
Wait,
but I
so
could show you a few.
right, but that Bull Terrier one, is that going to be finished or is that where it is now? We're back with Katrina Chenevert, and Katrina, you're just in the process of starting to show us around your studio a little bit, where you work. You're going to point out some of the things you're working on currently. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, it's all yours.
So I had mentioned that I did a watercolor, which is called Smoking Hot Women, and I had that enlarged, and the sun's coming through, and it's brutal right now in my studio because it's all window studio. But this is
I love it.
part of the actual Smoking Hot Women, and it's a period piece from the 30s, and it has my grandmother. We can't see that, but that is my grandmother right there. And being the 30 period piece, it has some things from the 30s, Betty Boop,
Well, I was going to ask you
Earhart.
that. Wait, you actually got Betty Boop to pose in that? That was really cool.
I painted Betty Boop in there.
Love
Yeah,
it.
she was, yeah. Judy Garland, Boz, and Amelia Earhart. This was a fun piece that we just
It's
we
one
had a
of, by the
little
way, compliment to you too. One of the great titles, I think. I just love it. Smoking Hot
no.
Women.
Smoking Hot Women. A friend of mine named it. They said, "Oh, look at that, Smoking Hot Women." I
Wait,
thought that's a great name.
and what was in the corner there? So Reefer Madness. There was an ad for Reefer Madness.
Oh yeah. So this back in the back in the 30s when Reefer Madness came
I
out.
remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, in the 30s, all about the the bad marijuana scene. And so yeah, that's in there. S&H stamps. I actually wove that. That was a class I took at when I was up. Instructor taught us how to weave things into the paper. So I incorporated that with S&H stamps and the pop art thing. I use a lot of pop art. Tootsie
I
Pops,
see
they
it.
came out in the 30s. Tootsie Pops came out. So all those things are relative to the 30s.
Well, what's so
I don't
cool
have a
about
name
that,
for
though,
that.
but it's just what's so cool about it, it's just such a fun piece. Just looking at it puts a
It's
smile on my
huge
face.
too.
Yeah. Is it
It's
really?
it's 70 by it's 70 by 42.
The
Yeah.
original. Okay, show us some other stuff if you would, please.
Yes. So this is something I've been working on for 3 years. Ta-da! That is an 8-foot Felix the Cat, and it is a replica, or gonna be, of a 1930 piece. There's a little wooden puppet that came out, and I made every single joint. It was a jointed puppet, and these little tails on and all that. And he's being put together. Like I said, I worked on this piece for 3 years. He's huge. He's 8 feet tall.
But I
He's
was
eight
going to
feet tall.
3 years.
That is that in my,
I was going
huh?
to ask you, is that the
Yeah,
longest you've ever done a piece, or have some taken longer than 3 years?
that's probably the longest I've worked on a piece. And when I say 3 years, I've not been working on this every day.
Right.
It could have been 8 months where I didn't even touch it. The head could have been in another room for a while. I don't know.
Okay, that'll be a lot of fun when it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. And like some of the things, I don't know how good we can get this. These are things I took out of that's the moon pie. I don't know how well you can see
I can see
that.
it, sure.
And underneath there is the Pop Tarts, and I just took those out of marquee. This is a set of grapes.
A big set of grapes.
Based on this, I did a series called Kitsch Casa. And all those things that you would have in your home in the 50s, 60s for,
Oh, right.
kitsch decor. Everybody, you had some of these, didn't you?
I remember those,
Anyway,
sure.
I did these based off.
Okay, we're having a little trouble, I think, with the sound. Katrina, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We're just kind of walking around Katrina's studio here then. And it looks like you have a lot of stuff in it. Do you?
Oh my God, it's a mess. Look, I'll whiz you around. It's a little crazy in here.
Okay, go ahead.
My back, I got all kinds of stuff that I'm either working on or worked on or books or this and that. And I'm also going to be creating some political art, kind of my way of giving back or showing. But honest, during 2020, I created this piece and it's called The Unrequited Voter. Yeah. And so this has gotten a lot of mileage. It's got that works. Twitter thing.
Well,
I have
I love the Ginsburg. Unfortunately, we can't see the Ginsburg thing. I would love to have seen
I don't
that.
have I don't
Okay.
have her in here. It's on my website though.
Okay.
We do some one-arm bandit stuff. It's killer, right?
Let me ask you
But
this as we're working around. So in terms of coming up with ideas with some of the stuff you do, where do the ideas come from?
they pop in my head. I'm not kidding. I mean, I think of something that's like, or I'll see something and I'm like, oh, that color goes with that. And then all of a sudden something it is created. 2020 was a big year for many reasons. And this piece that I did, The Unrequited Voter, is really my muse kicked in, Marisol Escobar, because she created like that, big boxy things with molded heads and stuff like that. So that was definitely a Marisol kind of theme thing. And there's a big postcard with it. I just came back from Washington, D.C., where this was distributed. We had 500 postcards. We went walking to a lot of places and left them. And it's about the art on the backside. I guess everything's backwards, but
But I get it. But for that postcard, you did the postcard also?
I did. I had the postcard made based on the photography that was done on the piece. The piece is exactly as tall as Trump is, and it has a circus cart it goes on.
So if folks want to see your art, what's best bet? Go to a website?
My website. So my website is my name, KatrinaChenevert.com.
Okay. And if they go there,
And
what will they see?
they will see all three of my types of work. I have assemblages on there, the soft sculptures. I have my paintings on there. I have the sepia series when I was painting in watercolor, just with sepia tones, which the Smoking Hot Woman was done in. That was a series of paintings. And a little bit about background about pop art. And it starts out at Andy Warhol's museum, and I'm sitting on it.
And we've lost Katrina for a second. Hold on a second, Katrina. We're winding down now with a local artist, Katrina Chenevert, and just took a brief tour of her workspace. And Katrina, you mentioned if people want to track you down or find out more about you, best bet is go to the website. And the website again was what?
Website is my name, KatrinaChenevert.com.
Okay, and that has contact information as well.
It has
All the good
contact
stuff.
information, my phone number. Yeah,
Oh, and also about your artwork, are you on anywhere else so they can go
I
there?
am. I'm on Facebook, Katrina Chenevert,
Okay,
and also on Instagram. My first name with the underscore, my last name with the underscore, and artist.
and each of those
Katrina
places,
Chenevert.
they have contact information to get in touch with you?
Contact information and my art. I post when I've completed something to Instagram. Sometimes when I'm working on something, I'll throw it. I'm like, and I'll have somebody say, "What are you doing?" Like when I was making the grapes, I was using a drill to tighten the wire, and I'm like, "I don't know what you're doing." And so I have to explain these sometimes.
And a tough question for you. I don't know if it's a tough question, but where do you see yourself as an artist 10 years from now? Do you have any direction you want to go in or anything you want to do when you grow up?
I have goals,
Yeah.
and the goals are, um, I would like to get a solo exhibition in a museum. Crystal Bridges in Arkansas. I'm thinking about approaching them. They do a lot of women's art. I'm a member of the Women's Art Museum in Washington, D.C. I'd like to approach them with some pieces. But to be perfectly honest, I need to finish a series of work. I have pieces in series, but they really need to be about, 5, 6 pieces finished so you can take a look and see the lineage of where the stuff came from and say, oh, that is part of this series, or oh, that is when she was doing this. And I don't have anything. Well, that's not true. If I finished that Felix the cat, then I'd have a whole series of salt sculptures that
Okay,
I
very
could
cool.
push forward.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Katrina, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of Blaine's World webcast. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy DeSetti, and hopefully we will bump into each other sometime
That would be great. And
in
Blaine,
there.
thank you.
Okay,
This
well,
was fun.
it
I
was,
really
and
appreciate this.
your work is so cool. I'm just like, what's a compliment to you, and I guess other people say this to you, is you look at your art and have a smile on my face, and
Yeah.
that's what, like, you even show those stupid grapes, no offense to the grapes, but I remember what
Yeah.
they were somewhere in my house, but my mother had them. I guess everybody had them, so maybe they'll make a
Yeah, I have
comeback.
the big sawdust ashtray, those. I have that upstairs. That's number 2 in the kitchen castle. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, Katrina, good speaking to you. Speak to you soon. Be well.
All right. Be well. Bye-bye.